Hello everyone, this is a Notifier AM2020 fire alarm control panel with an INA, Intelligent Network Annunciator. The INA was first produced in the early 1990s and was designed to be used on NotifierNet fire alarm networks. The INA can be used to display and control events across multiple panels on a network. It also had its own built-in RS-485 interface for annunciators, RS-232 interface for PCs and printers, as well as voice and telephone options. The INA was originally designed to work with the AM2020, AFP1010, AFP200, AFP300, and AFP400. So let's jump right into this. For this demonstration, we have a very simple network consisting of an AM2020 and an INA. On the table, we have an NBG12LX, an older generation model, a CPX551 ionization smoke detector, a system sensor SP2R1224MC speaker strobe, an FDX551 heat detector, and an SDX551 photoelectric smoke detector. On top of the panel is an FDRM1 multi-point module. It has 2 relay and 2 monitor points. The monitor points are connected to this button and blue point pull station, while the relays are used to control the speaker strobe. Behind the INA is an 8GG2 audio tone generator with an AA30 analog amplifier. This provides the audio for the speaker. And the 8GG2 is set to play the whoop tone. So let's activate the system. We will use the INA to acknowledge, silence, and reset. Was silenced from the INA. One relay point still active, that's controlling the strobe. So now let's activate the SDX551. Silenced again, and from the INA, it shows the node that had the alarm. The AM2020 is node 12 in this example. The speaker is set on 1/4 watt, but it's still really loud. The HGG2's low-level audio seems to be a bit higher than what the AMG1 would have. So now let's activate this smoke detector. Both detectors are set in high sensitivity, so they'll trip a bit quicker. And lastly, the heat detector. Don't have the hair dryer, so we'll just magnet test it. Compared to other AFB panels, it's actually pretty quick on the AM2020. So that's all the devices on the table activated. We'll clear out the smoke detectors, reset the pole, and then we can reset from the INA. So that's reset. Detectors are clear. If you listen carefully, you can still hear the whoop tone playing on the speaker. The HGG2 is activated by a signal circuit and it's on a non-silenceable one, so that's still going, but the speaker circuit is silenced. Now to conduct a network reset. And the network is back to normal. Now let's activate these devices. This blue point pull station will indicate a security alarm, and this button will indicate a supervisory. Speaker strobe won't sound, but this is mostly to show the different event types on the INA. So let's start with the supervisory. So we got supervisory on the FDRM1, monitor point 2, acknowledged on here. Now for the pull station. Now that's acknowledged. Got a security alarm. So the INA has separate security and supervisory LEDs. The AN2020 does not. In fact, older AN2020 displays didn't even have a security alarm text there. Supervisory and security just fell under the trouble indicator. So that's reset. Let's reset from the INA once more. Now it's the trouble relay on the AN2020. And everything is back to normal. As with other annunciators, the INA was usually installed in an annunciator cabinet like the ABS4D, and it wasn't in the same cabinet as a panel like this. In some larger, more complex networks, the INA could be installed in a full-size cabinet like this, being at the top of the panel, while the lower bays would contain smaller annunciators like the ACM16, and even voice options with the AMG1 and FFT7. Here's an inside look. The top bay is all parts for the AN2020. So you have the DIA 2020 display interface assembly. Right there is the CPU module, the serial interface board or SIB, and in the back is a LIB400 loop interface board. This is where the SLC loops are. This SIB is a SIB net, so it can hold a network card. In this case, the media interface board or MIB. And this is a wired version. There are also fiber versions. Following the wire from the MIB, it goes to the INA, which has its own media interface board. And this larger board back here is the entirety of the INA CPU. It's got the front display, and the main board, and there's various connectors. So on the left side here, this here is a connector to the main power supply, in this case the MPS24. But if the INA is located remotely, such as in a ABS4D cabinet, this terminal block will be used to supply 24-volt DC power to the INA. This here is the RS-232 interface for PCs and printers, and then the RS-485 interface for other annunciators, AMG1, and other serial components. On the bottom right here, there's a ribbon cable connector here. This will be used to connect to a power supply, like the MPS24A, if it was in its own cabinet. Since the AN2020 is using that harness, the INA does not have that cable connected. There's also a little jumper here, which can be removed if there were to be an AKS1 key lock installed with the INA. This is more common if the INA is in a remote annunciator cabinet. As mentioned before, behind the INA is the AGG2 tone generator and the AA30 amplifier. The microphone was removed to give space to the INA. The AGG2 is a simpler version of the AMG1. It does not have any voice options and just has a couple of tones. It's triggered with a 24-volt DC input. It does not use annunciator communications. It is dual channel with a EVAC and alert channel, and when the microphone is installed, paging can be selected for either the EVAC channel, the alert channel, or both. The display and keypad interface on the INA is nearly identical to that of the AN2020. The main differences being a lot more LEDs for indicating various events, and the system test button is replaced with an activate signals button. Ironically, in both cases, these buttons are not functional. These may have been older functions that have since been disabled on later versions of these components. Likewise, the menu interface is very similar to that of the AN2020 as well on the INA. So I'll start with read status, and we can either review all the system programming, points, and the network. So that's just for the INA. There's nothing connecting to the INA besides the AM2020. So let's check network points. So let's try node 12, loop 1, module 1. This is the pole station. I had to pull the information from the AM2020, so there it is. It's normal. That's the address. Now let's try a detector. So node 12 again. Loop 1. Detector 1. This would be the CPX 551. So grab the information from the 2020. And there it is. CPX 551. That's high sensitivity. So let's access an output. Node 12, loop 1, module 4. This should be the strobe on the speaker strobe. So now we just gotta wait for it to transmit to the 2020. There it is. Strobe's flashing. Alright, now let's turn that off. Enter the same address again. And now let's turn it off. There we go. Now let's check out programming. Asks for the level 2 passcode. So now we're in the programming interface, and it's quite similar to that of the AM2020. So let's navigate through all these options. We'll start with 1, partial system programming. So we'll start with 1, NFN, or Notifier Net. Ask if you want to change the node address of the INA. We'll say no, because it's already set. Change the MIB threshold. Don't want to change that. It could be high or low depending on how the network is configured. I think they're both set to high. MIB data usage. You want to change that. The last option here is to change the network map. This is a list of panels that are visible to the INA. So we'll just hit yes to demonstrate that. There's an option to auto program. And the only node that's connected here is node 12, which is the AM2020. So we'll keep that. And then if there's any other nodes, there's options to add them or remove them as necessary. Next is key. This is the key switch for the 8KS1 if it's located remotely. And we're not going to change that. Next is cable. This is the power supply cable, which is not in use on this INA. It's connected to the 2020, so we'll hit no. Next is ANN. If there's any annunciators on the system, it will be configured here, but there's none. Next is UDACT. This asks if I'm going to program that, and there's none on this system, so we'll just hit no. Next is 6, external. Change terminal supervision, that's for like the LCD ADTM, terminal mode annunciator, printer monitoring, pager programming, modem, and other external components like that. And finally is 7 for any kind of NFPA listings. These would modify what points have to be in the panel's programming to fulfill any NFPA configurations, but this is a demonstration custom, so we'll leave that off. Options 3 and 4 are for point programming. In this case, it's for any annunciators. 5 is to remove annunciator points. 6 is passcodes. If the INA's passcodes have been changed, there is a backdoor, like with the AM2020 and the AFP panels. And 7 is the system normal banner, which is what this is. And that is it for the Intelligent Network Annunciator. These were discontinued by the early 2000s. With the release of Notifier Net version 5, the INA became functionally obsolete, as version 5 dropped support for the INA. While the INA only lasted a couple of years and is largely forgotten nowadays, it served as the foundation for many later network annunciators, including the NCA, followed by the NCA2, and now the NCD, a touchscreen annunciator. The INA does not support any of the newer notifier panels like the Onyx series or the Inspire series. However, if you happen to have many older notifier AFP panels, and especially those with older firmware, then the INA serves as a useful component when networking the panels together, as it can serve as a central hub in controlling and displaying events from all the panels. As a side note, networking the AFP and AM2020 panels with the newer Onyx and Inspire series panels can be tedious, as the older panels have to be on the latest firmware and their network cards must be on NotifierNet version 5. The panels and their respective network cards are all discontinued, thus it can be very difficult to find the latest firmware version for all these components. Luckily, the INA supports all of the AFP panels, especially if the network cards are not running version 5, and thus it's a helpful network annunciator for any hobbyist that may have multiple AFP panels networked together. In any case, if you have any questions or comments on the INA, feel free to post them below. But until next time, have a nice day.